is 7 o'clock. I think it's time for us to start. I'm thrilled to see so many people here and also so many candidates. So we have decided, because there are so many candidates here, that we're going to do this in halves. And so we're going to do the folks running for positions in the town of Wilton first, and then we'll be doing the school positions second. So I think we'll more or less try to take an hour for each, or well, an hour for this half. There are fewer questions for town candidates and a lot less contested races. So you know, we'll take whatever time we need, and then we'll switch over to the school races. So my name is Kermit Williams. I am president of the Wilton Lions Club, and this is something that the Lions Club has done for years, and we see that as part of our civic engagement. The idea of having an event where you have an opportunity to see the people who are running for town and school elections, and we actually do it in the fall for state elections as well. Never had presidential candidates come, but you know, you never can tell. So what we're doing, we've asked Deb Morsweet to be our moderator. We've had Bill Keefe, who is the town moderator, do this typically, but Bill's not available this time around. So Deb is willing to fill in, and I'm sure she'll do a great job. We're not going to do questions from the floor because that becomes a little hard to manage. And so if you have a question that you'd like to ask, we have cards. If anybody hasn't got the card yet, you can certainly pick up a card, and there's pens, and just write down your question. And we'll make sure that questions, if you ask something that's a little bit insulting, we may not ask it, or may not ask it in the way that you write it. But you know, I would hope that everybody would ask reasonable questions that actually get to the point of what you're interested in. So with that, I will turn the floor over to our moderator.
So the moderator has a question. Is this being recorded video or just audio?
So both.
Both. Okay. So where's my camera?
So the owl. So those of you who have never seen a meeting owl before, the meeting owl is a 360-degree camera. Wow. And so it focuses on who's talking. So if those of you in the audience are talking, you may get picked up on the owl. So our goal would be for each to speak one at a time. And that means the owl will focus on you while you're talking, and then when someone else talks, it'll aim at them. If you go back and forth, it gets a little dizzy. So.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Deb Morsweet, and this coming week will be my 8th town election that I have participated in, and it will be my 7th school meeting that I have attended and town meeting. I'm new to the area. I'm from the center part of the United States, and I love Wilton. I attend select board meetings. I attend school board meetings, not all of them because I can't attend all of them, but I love being a part of this community, and this is wonderful to see how many people, not 2,000, thank goodness, that have showed up for our event tonight. So first we're going to start with over here with Karen, and tell us who you are. And my first question, what you're running for. I have a question, and it is, how many town and school meetings have you attended?
My name is Karen Walker. I live on Berry Hill Road. I have been a member of the planning board for 4 years, and I've learned a great deal from the resources that you have sent to that board. Long institutional memory, a whole diverse group of people, including builders, conservation commission members, whatever. It's a tremendous board, and one that I really appreciate having been a part of. As I said, I've learned a great deal. I am running unopposed, so, and my colleague Randy King right here, who gave me his proxy, there are two positions that are open, and each of us are running for the respective three-year terms. The question was, how many have I attended? Virtually, I've attended almost every single one, both at the board, both at the school board and of the select board. I do not attend certain other meetings because of potential conflicts. So for example, I would not go to the zoning board meeting necessarily. But, and if I miss a meeting, I read the minutes, assuming that they have been timely posted. Because I think it's important to understand what's going on around town, what the issues are, what the prevailing perceptions and viewpoints are, and just to keep your finger on the pulse of what the important issues are.
Okay.
I'm David Miller. I'm running for trustee of the trust funds. I've been doing this job as trustee and the bookkeeper since 2016. And just a way for me to have a little return to the town. I've been living here now for 40 years in Wilton. And I'm living in Hearthstone community. And for any of those who don't know Hearthstone, it's a homeowner association of 12 homeowners on a small portion of a 95-acre land owned by a land trust, and they're not community land trust. And so it's a nice little protected conservation and yet small residential environment there. And I've been serving as treasurer for those two organizations since the mid-1980s. So I'm a retired teacher from Nashua Community College, having taught math for many years and then later computer networking. So now I'm retired. I can spend some time keeping track of numbers for the town.
How many town meetings and school meetings?
Town meetings and school meetings, well, see, we've been here 40 years, about 40.
Okay. Joanna.
I'm Joanna Ekstrom. I moved to Wilton from Lowell, Massachusetts in 1976 and live up on Laurel Hill Street. My name is Cliff. Drop over anytime. That's how we describe our driveway. I became involved in town government way back in 1988, where I assumed the town clerk and tax collector position after Sandra Trow passed away. And then I quickly became immersed in the rest of government activities for the town of Wilton, including in the zoning board, the water commission, the sewer commission, and currently I'm chairperson of the sewer commission and seeking unopposed another 3-year term. I think it's really important that people in town recognize the great service it is that we have the Milford wastewater treatment facility to send our stuff to be processed and returned to the Sohegan River as a cleaner product. And that's everybody's responsibility, whether you are a user or not. And one of the things that I propound for the Wilton Sewer Department is, as well as for non-sewer users, that we can all protect the environment by making sure that the stuff that we put in our toilet or into our sink is the 3 Ps: pee, poop, and paper, and the rest needs to go into your garbage can. There is a lot of stuff coming down the stream, if you will, in that we are a part owner of the Milford wastewater treatment facility that handles processing all of our stuff. And being an owner, we have costs that are associated with that ownership. And I am trying to do my best, as are my fellow commissioners, to keep costs affordable, even though we've had to raise rates. But the system is old. It's over 40 years old, which is close to longer than the time some of us have been here. And while we've kept up with things, it's time to do some replacement so that we prevent damages from occurring. I am running unopposed, but I will appreciate your support on March 14th, because this is a very important part in keeping Wilton a thriving community. Thank you.
Lynn?
Oh dear. I'm Lynn Stone, and I'm your candidate for trustee of the Wilton Public and Greg Free Library. And I've lived in Wilton for 50 years and have always been a fan of the library and the town. It's a great place to live. I have attended, at least for the last 20 years, town meetings. Everyone, I have all the books. I get to school board meetings when I can. And I've been involved with other volunteer things in town, with Main Street, with Friends of the Library, with ambulance way back when, at the beginning when Elizabeth Stevens started it. Anyway, our library is a wonderful place and a historic and beautiful building with a great staff, and it's there to help promote and stimulate knowledge, wisdom, culture, and fun. It's a place where everyone is welcomed and where everyone can find themselves reflected in the stories that are on the shelves. And I would appreciate your vote and hope you will visit your library and vote for me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Agins. I'm the current treasurer for the town, and I'm running for re-election. I've lived in Wilton for about 16 years now, first in the 1990s. And then again, my husband and I moved back in 2014, knowing that Wilton would be a really nice community for our retirement. So I can say I've probably been to all the town meetings since 2014. I can't remember. The 1990s. Young children, you know, I can't remember what I was doing back then. But anyway, the school meetings, maybe not quite so much, but definitely all the town meetings. I'm currently a member of the town budget committee and have been for 5 years. And as I said, I'm running for re-election. I've been the treasurer now for almost a year. So I would love to be able to continue making sure that the town finances are maintained with efficiency and accuracy, that we get the best interest for our funds. And also, I'm keeping the town finances transparent to you, the taxpayer. On the town website, there's my treasurer's report, and this shows all the balances, the bank balances for the town accounts. So please take a visit. And so I would appreciate your support next Tuesday.
I'm Jess Powers. I'm running against Gail for treasurer. I'm very new to Wilton compared to this crowd. I've been in town since 2015. And you're asking why you want to help now. It's 2023. I've actually had a long commute to Keene for work, and now I'm working remote as of December. So I've said I'm going to help with that extra time and invest it into Wilton. So I chose treasurer as for most of my professional life, about 10 years outside of college. 6.5 of those years have been in financial analytics. So just hoping to bring the knowledge that I have as a senior analyst in different industries to the town, any of those skill sets. I know that Gail does a wonderful job right now. Just hoping to add any value I can and with something that I'm strong in professionally. and hope to meet you all in town and say hi and vote for Just Powers. Oh, and I have not attended any meetings. But now that I don't have that commute, I'm all over it.
Hal.
My name is Hal Mapes. I'm running for water commissioner. I moved to Wilton this July, will be 2 years. I've never been to a town meeting. I have previously served on school board, just not in the state, church boards, held different positions like that. I love living in Wilton. I love a small town atmosphere. I actually lived in Massachusetts for most of my life, moved to Napa, California for 3 years and decided it was a better place. I'll never leave here again. I know the water superintendent, Mike. He's actually a customer of mine, and I've been in the waterworks field for 24 years. So I said, you know, I want to give something back to my small town. I know a little bit about this industry, and I thought I had something great to bring to the commission. And that's what I intend to do. So I run unopposed, apparently.
Thank you.
So I'm Kermit Williams, and I am running for select board. And if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, this will be my 10th year on the select board. Seems like a long time, but I'm far from the record. Charlie McGettigan, who we lost in January, unfortunately, was on the select board for 24 years. He started a lot younger than me, so he had an advantage. I don't intend to even come close to that. But as long as there's a need, I'm willing to serve. And because I'm running unopposed, I guess there's a need. I don't mind being unopposed because it means less work. I don't need to go knock on all your doors and annoy you. But I would be happier if we had more people interested in running it. I would certainly encourage those of you who are interested enough, and of course, not everybody's from Wilton here. We have a lot of Lineborough people too, but and this would apply to you in Lineborough. If you're interested enough to come to a meeting like this, think about serving in some role. And in fact, they aren't all elected roles. There's lots of appointed roles. There's lots of volunteer roles. And the Wilton Lineborough Lions Club would welcome any of you to join. The more people, the merrier. The Lions Club does a lot of really interesting things. So there's an opportunity for volunteering too. But back to the select board, I'm not going to talk about the things that we've done in the last year. I would encourage you, if you're a Wilton resident, to pick up the town report. There's a stack of them out there. I see a lot of people have them already. And there's a page in there. There's lots of pages in there of different things, but there's a page in there that talks about the select board's year and the things that we worked on. But going forward, we have lots of things to do. And one of the biggest is to invest in the town's infrastructure. And, you know, I know this costs money, but it's really important to invest now before things get to the point where they become really expensive. So we have bridges that we're working on. There are actually 4 bridges in town that are on what's called the state red list, which means that something's wrong with them and they need to be fixed. We have roads to pave every year. We allocate a certain amount of the town's budget towards that. Can't pave all the roads. Those people who live on a dirt road, you're not likely to see a paved road in your future. And that's usually makes people happy because you bought a house on a dirt road, you figure you're going to live on a dirt road. And we also have 2 dams in town that the town is responsible for. So there's the dam at the new reservoir on Sand Hill Road, and there's the dam at Frog Pond. Both of those are conservation or recreation areas, and they both have issues. And so that may be expensive going forward. We haven't figured those out yet exactly what needs to be done, but those are things we'll be working on. Our highway garage, if you happen to drive up past the elementary school up the hill, you'll see the highway garage. We had a fire there. recently. One of the bays, well, one of the trucks burned inside the bay, and so the bay is damaged and the truck was destroyed, and we had to get a new truck. But that building was built for free for the town in the 1950s by one of the mill owners. And they built a nice building, but they didn't put a lot of effort into it in terms of, making something that would last 130 years like this building has. And so there's a time coming soon when we need to replace that building. That's going to be very expensive. And then there's smaller things. The police station roof, for instance, is going to need to be replaced soon. And this building, which, as I said, has been here for 130 some years. It's the jewel of the town's properties. It's, you see pictures of this building all over the place. I'm always surprised to look at, a Monadnock Journal or, something that isn't Wilton and see a picture of our town hall, because it's really iconic. We want to make sure it's still here. So one of the things we're going to be doing at town meeting is voting to spend some money on the cupola, which is leaking. And if we don't spend money on it, it may not be there anymore. And that would not be as pretty. We wouldn't have the cupola on all of our pictures. So unfortunately, things need to be done. We want to do them as economically as possible, but we do need to do them. The other side of that, I think, is, can the town of Wilton save you some money? And one of the things that we voted on at last year's town meeting was to enter into a community-based electricity aggregation program. And that is where the town essentially becomes the provider of the generation half of electricity. Eversource still delivers your power. Nothing changes. Your bill still comes from Eversource. The wire still comes from Eversource. But the town is actually the vendor of the generation. We would contract for that generation. And we approved that at town meeting last year. And just today, we signed the contract. So can't tell you what the price is, but it's a really good price. It's a significant savings over Eversource. And that applies whether you are looking for the least expensive or whether you want to spend a little bit more money for more renewable energy. So those options are all going to be there. And there will be mailings so that everybody will know what their options are. But I think this is a great thing for the town. And we are, there's 4 of us that did it all together, but the 4 towns are the first in the state to implement this program. So I think we should be proud of ourselves.
All right, thank you. So first of all,
I didn't answer your question.
oh yeah. tell me.
So my wife would tell you I go to way too many meetings.
So way too many for a permit. I wanted to start out thanking the Lions for hosting this, and back and forth. And then when the snow started up this afternoon, I thought, oh my goodness, I know I have to make it down the hill. But thank you to the Lions and not my experience with the Lions goes back to when I was in a very small hospital, in a very small emergency room, and the doctor that I worked for and our town surgeon was a Lion, so I remember we had an eye kit there, when we had to retrieve eyes, and I've always been very thankful for the Lions and in this community, the scholarships that you offer to our graduating seniors. So thank you to the Lions out there. So I have one question, and I'm not sure. I think I'm going to start over here with Karen. What is the town doing, or how will it stimulate affordable housing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. The folks may know that actually the planning board in the town have just been awarded a housing opportunity program grant of $83,000 to study what types of additional housing opportunities and what characteristics, the location, what types of additional housing might be appropriate for Wilton, because as we all know, Wilton is a unique community and really has very few there are very few similar communities in New Hampshire, but this grant is intended to defray the cost of having consultants. In our case, it will be the NRPC, the Nashua Regional Planning Commission. They're going to help us reach out to the community to get a series of different surveys, focus groups and the like to develop a sense of very specific attitudes towards additional types of housing. And then to look at the regulations, the land use laws and regulations, to see how they can be, or how the planning board might recommend they be changed in order to facilitate the development of those housing types that we all agree should be presented to Wilton, or at least encouraged. So that's going to be a huge focus in the next year. The grant has a lifetime of, I think it's about 15, 16 months. The funding runs out at the end of June of 2024. So we have a great deal of work to accomplish. Now, you said specifically affordable housing, and we will be focusing on affordable housing as well as workforce housing. They're two different things. And in fact, we expect to go a little bit beyond that, because those of you who may be familiar with the definition of affordable housing, because it's keyed to a certain percentage of the average family income in the region, it's actually very, very high. That bogey is very high. So affordable or workforce housing, I'm going to conflate the two here because they're very similar in terms of these numbers. It turns out that in Wilton, if you have a house for sale at around $350,000, that's considered affordable and workforce housing. So, you know, that may or may not comport with your idea of what affordable housing is. So we're going to look at the definitions, what the projections are, how they apply to Wilton, what the needs may be, and I'm not sure that we will necessarily feel bound by some of the definitions that give you the four corners of affordable and workforce housing. The grant is not intended to be focused on affordable or workforce housing. It's intended to be focused on alternative housing opportunities. So we expect to look at a whole range of things. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on what the infrastructure in town can bear, what the other types of issues and interests and values of the community are, whether in the town center or outside, and trying to put those two things together to come up with suggestions and then a means of encouraging those types of housing alternatives, whether they're ADUs, alternative accessory dwelling units, yeah, or whether there's an opportunity to rezone part of the town to make it easier for some of the pre-existing buildings to be converted into housing. We'll look at a whole range of things, and we'll have the assistance of NRPC at the cost of the state. These are actually funds that I think come through the federal government and then are administered by, I can't remember which group it is. But that's going to be a very significant focus of the planning board in the next 16 months or so, on top of our normal obligations, which are in the first instance to deal with applications for site plan reviews, subdivision review, and we've seen an uptick in those types of applications, and not only an uptick in the number, but in the complexity and the issues that they raise. And then on the other hand, we also are charged with every year looking at different chapters of the master plan. That ties perfectly in with this grant that we've gotten, because we're looking at the housing and population chapter of the master plan, and as well as looking at amendments or proposing amendments to the zoning ordinance and to the regulations that are also part of the land use laws and regulations. You'll see on the ballot a number of issues that we've proposed and presented to the town. Several changes to the zoning ordinance, nothing incredibly major. There's a voter's guide that'll explain it. They're actually pretty well explicated on the ballot itself. And there were significant changes to existing regulations adopted by the planning board. Those don't go to the town meeting. So I commend it to you if you're at all interested or you're having trouble getting to sleep. You can look at the site plan regulations have been significantly revised, as have the stormwater regulations, totally rewritten. So that's what we've done in the past year. We have a great deal on our plate coming up.
So David, I'm not sure that our affordable housing has anything to do with your trustee.
Well, no, at this point, we certainly do not have any trust fund or capital reserve fund dedicated to affordable housing, but if I could just put in a plug for the community land trust model, I'm a personal beneficiary of access to affordable housing. And with the community land trust model, the idea is when you sell your house, you're only selling your house, you're not selling any land. So by removing the cost of the land out of a particular purchase, it can significantly reduce the cost and open up the opportunity to people of more moderate needs.
Okay.
Thank you.
And sewer commission, that's part of that infrastructure.
Yes.
Yep. That all you want to say is yes?
No. Our ability to move forward, first of all, we need to make sure that the infrastructure that we have available now is sufficient enough to support the addition of additional housing. As I mentioned earlier, it's 40-year-old pipes and transfer stations at the island, at the Mill Street pump station and the Intervale pump station, and getting all of this stuff to mesh together and flow smoothly down to Milford. We need to make sure that there is infrastructure available to develop any kind of housing. And we have actually one project that we were looking for was out on 101. The project initially talked about doing a 20-unit cluster development. That has changed. I'm not sure what it is now.
Well, it hasn't come back to us, but the last cut was 7.
Okay. We had hoped, or the developer had hoped, that they would be able to put in a sewer system that would tie them into the Milford facility. And that became obvious very, very quickly that it wouldn't work, because we would have to have a sewer line actually crossing the river to get into the pump station on Intervale Road to be able to take this stuff downstream. So there's a lot of study work that needs to be done about where you can put sewer lines, and Wilton Sewer Commission would love to get new customers, but it needs to be at a reasonable expense for everybody, for all of the users, as well as the rest of the town.
Do you have anything for the library?
No, we're happy to have people who come and use the.
Treasurers have any input on affordable housing?
It doesn't really impact the budget of the town per se. But I would like to put in a plug for anything that would encourage younger adults to move into town. New Hampshire's a graying state, and we need more young people to move in.
Jessica, you're who we're talking
Yes.
to.
Yeah, so I'm 31. I guess that's younger, but no, to your point, I don't think there's anything for treasury, but this is on a personal note. I think we all know that affordable housing is something that's needed. If you want to keep people in our state, then we have to have it, especially in our town. Sorry, Wilton in our state, in our town. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And Hal, I know you're for clean water. So, I mean, you've looked at some of the water commission stuff and know, I mean, I'm sure you've read their minutes and you know, kind of know what you're stepping into, kind of the same thing with the sewer, water for those places.
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking like about affordable housing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? So it's, you know, when you have, say you have people on fixed income and, you know, the whole tax base of the community kind of goes to mainly the school department, right? So if your tax base gets too high, then you kind of chase the people on fixed income, the seniors who don't tax the school system. And it's kind of the same way with your water system. So you need users with water meters or commercial units to pay for your water and sewer bills. But on the other hand, that actually adds a cost to a homeowner. So, you know, getting to your propagation study of, you know, analyzing what parts of town, you know, in my opinion, you know, it may be more affordable if you had a parcel outside of the water and sewer district, to make it more affordable.
With
They
their
don't
own
have that
well
expense.
and septic.
But, you know, that's what land is. You don't want to have too many septics near an aquifer and all that. Complex.
Kermit.
So some of you may remember that I used to be a state representative. And I was on the Commerce Committee, which is the committee that kind of oversees the business life of New Hampshire. And one of the things that I realized was that housing and business are inextricably linked, because people who work in companies need to have a place to live. You know, now I guess more people are doing it remotely, so you know that's a little bit different. But factories, and New Hampshire traditionally was a place where we had lots of factories. We made a lot of things, and it's hard to make things remotely. Maybe possible, I don't know, but in most cases, the factory workers need to be there. And so, you know, whether it's Hitchner and Milford, or whether it's New Hampshire Ball Bearing in Peterborough, or Millport and Jaffrey, they're all trying to grow and they all need people. And, you know, Karen talked about what's an affordable house in Wilton, and unfortunately, it's tough to be able to buy a house if you're working in one of those places, at least, you know, in a line position. If you're a manager, you probably can. But I think if we're going to be able to have the industry, which pays a lot of the state level taxes in New Hampshire, we've got to have places for people who work there to live. And if you want to have restaurants, if you want to have stores, you need to be able to pay, you need to have places where people who get paid those rates live, you know. So somebody that works in a grocery store is not making enough to buy a $300,000 house. Maybe someday, but when they're at the beginning of their career, they need a much more affordable place to live. And so what happens in Wilton and a lot of places in our area is that people have to commute from Nashua or Manchester because there are apartments. I would love to see us have a reasonable set of housing that's affordable. I don't want, you know, 18-story buildings downtown. I think that's not suitable for Wilton, but being able to make the town a place where people of different ages and different incomes can be together, can, you know, all share what is a wonderful town. I think everybody more or less said this is a good town, and I absolutely agree. I would love to have more people come here and more young people, because we are getting old. And I think, you know, I want somebody to be living in New Hampshire when I go in the nursing home, because otherwise, I'll have to take care of myself.
We have two questions that deal specifically with the treasurer position. And trying to figure out how to combine these. So I guess I just have one for Gail and then one for Jessica. What have you accomplished in your first year as treasurer, and what are your plans for next year if reelected?
Very good question. So I'll start with what I've accomplished. There were a few issues with kind of how some of the finances all worked together for the town. And there's also been transition with our bookkeeper, finance director position. So when I came on board, all of a sudden, we were without a finance officer. And so we had an interim person come in, and now I can say we have a fabulous bookkeeper who has just gone through all the accounts and straightened up pretty much everything. I am so happy. And so I've been working closely with Eric and with town administration to make sure that we have everything where it needs to be. And while there may have been some issues with this previous audit, those are all being cleaned up. And so next year's audit should be smooth sailing. The other thing that I wanted to accomplish was having more transparency in the town finances. It's very hard to find information. You find it once a year in the town report, but then nothing. So I started doing treasurer reports and posting those on the town website. You can see the money flowing in June and December, and you can see the money flowing out as we get, especially toward May and late November. But it's all there, it's all tracked, and we are trying, Eric and I, to make sure that we have as much money invested in the New Hampshire public deposit pool, investment deposit pool, where we are earning a great interest rate on our money. So while we're waiting to use it, in later months, it is not sitting idle. It is earning money. So that's what I've been doing. Next year, I would like to continue the work. There are still a few areas that need a little more attention. Eric and I have been talking about that, ways to improve things. He's a master spreadsheet guy. But all those spreadsheets take a lot of time to maintain. So it's how to keep all that information where it needs to be and tracked, but how to make sure that Eric's time is used wisely. I also want to make sure that the taxpayers have as much information as they need so that you feel comfortable that your tax dollars are being spent wisely. So I do have the treasurer has a town email. Please email me with any questions or concerns that you might have.
Thank you. Jessica, is that for you?
Put your phone on silent and alarms just keep going off. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'll be answering the second half of the question.
You'll be
What will I
asked.
do to
Why are you running for
Oh, right.
treasurer, and what would you do different from our current treasurer? Not that you've got to look at her books, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. So not understanding specifics on the existing landscape. What you just described, Gail, that's what I do for a living, is spreadsheets. So I just left the company I was working for about 7 years. It was $30 billion annual sales, CNS Wholesale Groceries in Keene. I went to a smaller entity in Maine. It's about 10 billion annual. So I'm used to really high volume. That's all I do all day is dynamic spreadsheets, databases, making things run on their own, automatic. So I think I can really add value in that facet. Dovetailing off the great work that Gail has done to get it all organized. I think that I just can make it that much more robust using all of the tools that I've learned in my career and in college. I have 2 finance degrees. I have a 6 Sigma Green Belt, which is about process improvement. So I like to kind of dig in the weeds and fix problems. So if elected, I think I can use that skill set to greatly enhance what we already have going today and make it even better. You're welcome.
So it's about 7:45. Do we want to, does anybody have anything else they want to say? Or these are the questions that I have. Are there any other questions coming forward? Does anybody have something they're dying to ask? You can say it. I can say it. As long as I can have
As
control.
long as it's a polite question.
I'll do my best, Kermit. Okay, so I do have a lot of questions based on the dialogue, right? It opens up questions. First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and taking out the time to do that on a snowy, cold day. So I had sort of questions for each person, well, almost everybody. So I actually have it on my phone, so I don't lose track on that. But when you were talking, I guess I'm not clear about when you're saying affordable housing, when we're talking about the median of being 300,000. So when I think affordable housing, I think of maybe the elderly or special needs population who may or may not have New Hampshire housing to be afforded. But the problem that we have is that New Hampshire housing, to get affordable housing, is not what the going rents are in any given community. So what would be affordable to a population that you have, as everyone has stated, you have an older and dying population in here? What would happen to the older? I'm sorry, I wasn't directed at everyone. What would you do to the special needs population? I mean, or the elderly, because I can see it in both. I speak for those of you that know me. Kermit knows me. I care for an incompetent adult son. I'm not going to be around forever. He may get housing, but it's not like he's going to find a rent anywhere. I mean, not many people are going to rent to an incompetent special needs boy on housing, let alone trying to find a rent that's going to fit the housing area. What options would be available to that demographic, even if they're a minority in our community?
So I wish I could answer that question, but that's not really the purview of the planning board, in the sense that we don't develop the parameters by which affordable housing is determined or workforce housing is determined. That is determined by the state, and it is keyed to regional income. And as I said before, the definitions of affordable housing and workforce housing, and again, there are differences in how they're calculated in numbers. And the amount I threw out for a purchase price as affordable, what qualifies as affordable for state purposes in this current year based on 2020 census data and as it was updated in the last couple of years, that's a purchase price of about $342,000 for any house in this region, basically the Southern Hillsborough County region. That translates to rent, and I have no idea for how many units this covers, but it translates to monthly rent of $1,667. As I said, to me, that doesn't necessarily comport with my idea of what affordable housing is for the population that you're trying to house, and that those are the workers who come in, who are starting, the young folks, young families who haven't reached the apex of their careers. We don't have guidance from the state because all we have are these definitions of affordable housing, which change, and workforce housing, which is, again, it's determined on a different basis than affordable housing, although one's a subset of the other. So I wish I could answer your question, but so far I haven't seen any data that gives me guidance on, you know, what you end up having to shoot for in terms of purchase prices or rentals. The key issue, the question though, is, you know, it's important to know what those levels are. But then you have to think of the other side of the coin. What kind of government subsidies are available to support the development of that housing? And again, I wish I did. I don't have anything to do with that. But in point of fact, it's very hard to find supportive money that's going to assist in the development of housing that goes for less than 340,000 or, you know, 1,060. It's a significant issue. It's a significant problem. And those problems are magnified in Wilton. And the reason they're magnified in Wilton is because we're a small town. We have a small town center. We have infrastructure challenges that we have dealt with extraordinarily well, but they continue to grow. We have the overwhelming, I have an overwhelming sense that the community values the environment, the rural character of the town, the preserves, the conservation land, and there's a balance that has to be struck there. And frankly, that's what we're going to try to do with the help of this funding that we've gotten, is to figure out how we can thread that needle. And to the extent that additional housing is necessary or desired, where should it be? What characteristics should it have so that it fits in Wilton, which is a unique community and values this whole range of things, from truly affordable housing to, you know, being able to go and walk on huge tracts of land and not see anybody else and just enjoy that natural beauty that is Wilton. So it's a tough question.
Yes, thank you. And I would agree that it's tough, having raised, I have 5 children, and I have raised 2 children that are lifelong incompetent. And shelter has always been a situation for those that are incompetent. As you can see in Manchester, they are inundated by the mental health population and the homeless population, and they don't know what to do with it. And the fortunate part that we have is that we do have a lot of land. So if, as a community, we can govern pieces of that land, and maybe with zoning laws afford maybe little houses that you're seeing in other vast cities or communities, we may be able to also service a population of people that exist already in our current town, which I think would be nice, considering that we are a community-based approach and we like to take care of each other. And I think
You know,
there are people.
I'm on the Heritage Commission, and actually, back in the 1800s, there was a pattern of county farms and the displaced and homeless and widows and needy, you know, were put on farms. And I don't know the terminology, but they were given a place to live on a farm and then taught to farm. And unfortunately, a lot of them were sick and invalid and stuff. So there wasn't the internet to say, how do we do this? You couldn't Google that. But you know, there is a pattern of doing that, and you know, whether that be a subsidy or that kind of a thing. But and I'm not coming up with this idea. I'm just like, I mean, this area is known for that, and you know, because this has existed, the town that's going to be 400 years is over on the East Coast. Yes, going to be 400 years and old, you know, this year, and you know, it's just amazing. So there is a pattern for that kind of thing. So can you make another question really short?
No, if someone has another question, I can also talk to you maybe after or whatever,
Okay.
so that's fine.
Okay. Anyone
We
else?
probably should switch
Okay.
to the school board, because that we.
Give 10 minutes
done
and
this
we
for
can switch.
Okay, if you want to take another 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's take 6 minutes.
Okay.
All right. You're dismissed. Yeah.
We all are.
You all.
We're all out here.
Yeah, thank you all.
Oh,
So We're recording. All right, so we're going to vacate the tables, and those of you who are running for school positions can claim your spots.
Yeah. Place that,
Well,
Like a formal presentation. I mean, I have a type of formal presentation.
well, I mean,
That's not going to happen.
I don't think you're gonna do 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Go see go.
Yeah, preferred spot.
So you can say whatever you want. You know,
Yeah.
each person has to introduce themselves and make whatever
Yeah.
initial comments they
Oh,
want.
okay.
And then there'll be questions.
Well, yeah, yeah.
we want to not have to study.
Yeah.
That's what I just talked to. Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, it seems like this. Oh, hi,
You guys give your conversation so people can actually know. You can sit around and listen. Anybody else who needs to go?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, I only see you like.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm in the license, don't
Yeah, good.
So Lucius, you'll have more time to talk because there's fewer people here.
True, true, yeah, true. But I'm just looking at this and it's like, yeah, whatever.
And now for our featured event. So. I don't know who you are.
Lucius.
Okay.
So I was just thinking of Kermit, but I mean, I had a totally different impression of what was tonight.
Okay.
That's, I have this,
Do you think it was gonna be like a debate or something?
no, I thought it was gonna be a prepared presentation.
Okay, and you can kiss.
Oh.
I will.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because I have some
But,
letters from those.
yeah, that's what I figured, right. Okay, all right,
No problem.
good. Good. Really, nobody knows me, so.
Well, this is how you.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Hate to just read it. Like, what I'm looking at.
Well, you can recite it.
I could recite it. I could. I have a degree in recitation.
Do you really?
No, I'm kidding.
I could have a degree in ideas.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I'm all for that.
Okay. I'm gonna shut that door just. Not because I'm trying to keep anyone out, just. Okay. So. You have to tell me who you are. So we're gonna start on this end, so. what's your
Shelley.
name? And I'm gonna also ask, tell me what you're running for. And I want you to say what I asked the town, those that were running for town offices, how many town and school meetings, like the yearly meetings, have you attended? I'll start with you.
Okay, my name is Michelle Alley, and I am running for budget committee. I think I'm the school budget committee. I think I'm running unopposed, but I am very new to something like this. We've moved a lot, and we currently have 2 kids in the school district right now, twin boys in 7th grade. And I felt having moved to this community that it was, having had 4 kids and having the, I felt like I had the time to be able to commit to this and learn and grow. And I haven't been to any meetings. I mean, we've been to some town meetings, but I haven't been involved personally in them. So I'm very new to this, and I'm excited to learn and grow and serve the school district.
I guess that falls on me, the lesser half of the duo. So my name's Craig Alley. I'm running for the school board for the town of Wilton. As Michelle said, we moved back to New Hampshire about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago. We originally moved to New Hampshire back in 2010 over into Fitzwilliam. And first of all, I appreciate this forum, appreciate everybody coming out, appreciate the Lions Club, because as we lived in New Hampshire last time, that was one of the things that really endeared us to New Hampshire, was kind of this local form of government and community. So especially upon our return, which was made possible by me being made remote in my work. So we were able to kind of pick where we wanted to live, and first thing we did was come back to New Hampshire. So it's good to be back, and we're enjoying it a great deal. They're carrying us out of here in a pine box or compost heap or something. But so I think along those lines, as Michelle said, as far as town meetings here in Wilton, I think we had 6 kids last year, so we didn't want to share that around. So we missed last year, but we always enjoyed going to them in Fitzwilliam when we lived there. It's always quite a delightful form of entertainment and participation. We missed it when we got pulled away. So I guess along those lines, when we returned to New Hampshire, and especially when with us having 4 kids and 2 still in school, we decided, well, let's find an opportunity to serve, and being part of the school board seemed to make sense, since we have a vision into that through our kids and through their friends and the parents that we meet through that, of kind of what their thoughts and everything are, and so we just figured that'd be a good place to serve and see if we could bring some of our talents to the community. As far as me myself, just so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from, who I am. I was born and raised in a small lumber town in Oregon till I was 22 or so. Then explored the world, got an education, master's of business, international business out of George Washington, and I work globally and support and run a global supply chain for a chemical and mining company. So I'm able to be based here, although I travel everywhere, and it's wonderful. It's taken a long ways to get here, and we're enjoying it. So with that, it frees me up as well being here to be able to devote some time back to the community, and this is how I've decided to try to do it. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There'll be more.
Oh, that's fine. I'm here, and it looks like we've got a smaller crowd, so we'll have plenty of time.
My name's Cynthia Diane Kloss. All my friends call me Diane. And I moved to Wilton when my husband Trent and I got married. So we've been here this will be the 26th year. We do not have any human children. We have fur children. And we're very
Would you
happy.
like some of ours?
You know what?
Make you a good deal, especially tonight.
We like kids and everything. It's not that we don't like kids, but one of the reasons that we don't have kids is because I'm a speech language pathologist, and this is my 39th year being a kid advocate. So even though we don't have any human children living with us, we've had foster kids. We have always been very supportive of the school budget here, you know, even though we don't have any children in it at the time. We just think public education is important. So, you know, I've been working with kids, it seems like all my life, and I don't go to every meeting. We've probably been to maybe over the last 26 years, more recently, maybe something in the lines of 10, something like that. I try to keep pretty current on the issues that are coming up. So I wouldn't say that I'm uneducated with that, especially since I'm such an active speech pathologist. You know, I stay pretty busy with that. But I also know that it's a lot of work. My mother was a school board member for 11 years. And it is a lot of work for people to do. So I had heard that they were having some difficulty finding people to run. And I was willing to put in the time. I can make arrangements because I too am a remote educator or employee someplace. So I've got a little more flexibility to carve out time to serve the public here. So that's
Okay.
pretty much it.
Okay, great, thank you. And
Lucius,
Lucius
Sorrentino.
Sorrentino, you want to tell us
Well, okay, so.
just a little bit of who you are and
Yeah.
how many town meetings and school meetings have you been to?
I haven't been to a school meeting.
Okay,
I would just preface by saying that I spent 23 years as a student in classrooms and 28 years as a teacher. When I retired, I was done with all of that. So yeah, I didn't really have any much interest in attending school board meetings or any of that because I was retired. I just wanted to travel and hike and do all that. So I got a call literally the day before that Friday when registration was ending. Desperate phone calls from two people who really recruited me to run for this position, which I had never thought of doing. And my initial response was, "Can I get back to you in the morning about that, please?" You know, like, holy cow. And then I got a phone call from a school board member that Friday morning saying that there was a person who was going to run for the school board and then changed their mind and was running for the budget committee, and that I was off the hook. And I was like, "Thank you." Seriously, because it just wasn't something that I thought that I really wanted to do. But then I got a call at 4:30 saying that this person had changed their mind and that I needed to get down to the school and register. And I was like, "Oh, brother, okay, do it." And so now that I have, it's sort of like I'm 100% committed to doing this. And I think I can bring something to the table. Unfortunately, so I spent however many hours writing a formal presentation because that's what I thought was required. So it's going to take about 2 minutes, but if you would indulge me, then I will read this and then you will know a little bit about me. You won't know that I worked in construction for 15 years. You won't know that I worked in a sheet metal factory in East Boston for 2 years. You won't know that I worked as a drill press operator for BF Goodrich. You won't know about any of that because I'm not talking about that. This is strictly academic and my version of what I think a school board is. So most likely no one in this room knows much about me. So by way of introduction and for what it's worth, this is a little bit about my background. I worked my way through Boston College and have degrees in philosophy and English literature. And by work my way through, I mean 30 hours a week. I have a master's of art in teaching, also from BC, and in addition, 36 graduate credits in educational administration. For 8 years after college, I was an editor and consultant for Merlin's Pen, the National Magazine of Student Writing. I've also been awarded two National Endowment for the Humanities fellowships. I'm currently a Tarbell Library trustee and previously volunteered on the Lineborough Conservation Commission, which I actually hope to get back onto. So as far as meetings go, those are the meetings that I attend. I was a public high school English teacher for 25 years. I developed the advanced placement program for the 11th grade and 3 college accredited honors courses. I served on the Superintendent's Council for the Future of Education, whose focus was on how best to prepare kids for the jobs of the 21st century. So that's a little background. So now as for my candidacy for this position, I see my role in the school board as being an advocate for teachers, for kids, and for staff. As this is a voluntary position, my interest in serving can be summed up as, what can I do to help? That's it. I don't pretend to be an expert in school board policy or anything like that. All I just want to do is learn and help. To me, the function of any school board is to do what it can to support students, teachers, and staff by providing them with the means, both for the adults to do their job and for the kids to be prepared to enter the next phase of their lives. Okay, so it's a K through 12 system, but at some point, they have to get out of school and figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. So, by the way, I am not a college first proponent. College is fine, but it's not for everyone, which in my book means that in addition to academics, school districts ought to provide alternative educational opportunities in the trades. Carpentry, which is what I did, electrical, which is what I helped my boss with, electronics, plumbing, mechanics, engineering, medicine, the list goes on. Because as I see it, the academic and the practical are the 2 cornerstones of public education, as I see it in this country. Every kid is unique with their own interests, skills, and abilities. And schools must serve this diversity. At some point, one size does not fit all. Giving each student the opportunity to explore what is possible for them is how we best serve their needs in the 21st century. That's what I know. I would also like to make a few points. This is about the school board, basically. I applaud the school board's decision to adopt the principals committee recommendation regarding this book that has raised such a lamentable brouhaha. Second, I believe that teachers must have a certain degree of professional autonomy and not be micromanaged by school board overseers. I do not see my job as a manager of teachers. I think they need autonomy. So I also have this thing about one of the candidates is putting forth something called a clean curriculum, and I don't want to get into it,
Yeah.
but we're not going to get into that. Okay, so fine. Fourth. Fourth, and it's
Because I'm the moderator.
she's the moderator, and that's fine. I want to assert categorically that in all my years of education, I have never heard of a school board in the business of writing or rewriting curricula or imposing some ideological framework on curricula. Writing curricula is a job of educational professionals, not amateurs with an axe to grind. And my final point is, to put it plainly, and this, you may or may not like what I'm about to say, but here it is. Any attempt to turn the school board into a hobby horse for a personal or politically based agenda that would seek to impose an ideology or unduly impose censorship or restrict what teachers do or even what they say, in other words, to micromanage them, goes against the very concept of education as I understand it. Students and teachers are not pawns to be manipulated by the proponents of an ideological agenda. I'm sorry. We have to trust that schools are doing the best they can with what they are allotted. We have to trust educators and librarians to do their job without a lot of interference. And so in closing, finally, I'm sure you're all bored to tears by now, let me reiterate, there is a difference between serving the needs and well-being of the human beings and the physical buildings that comprise this school district and serving an ideological or political or religious agenda. I am a candidate to serve the schools, not to pursue an ideology. And I do want to thank you for your indulgence. That was exhausting.
Deb, can I make one request? We
we have different people here from 2 towns. Can you please ask each candidate to identify which town they're running for? And if they are running opposed or unopposed, and who they are running against? Because, yeah, they're not all running for the same position.
Okay.
Okay, I'm running for a 1-year replacement.
In what town?
In Limeboro, I'm sorry, in Limeboro, and my opponent is Jeff Allen. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. We have an emergency call here, hold on. Let's have a pause in the proceedings, so you know that's taking your job here.
Okay, and Michelle, can you tell me
Yeah, Wilton, 3-year term and unopposed for the school budget.
the school budget?
Yeah.
And great.
Yeah, so we're slugging it out for the Wilton seat,
Okay.
and it's what, a 3-year term.
I think so. Yeah. I live in Wilton too.
And we're Wilton.
Okay, all right, so do you have a prepared statement like that
No,
telling us?
no.
Okay, Cynthia, you?
But I appreciate that.
You know, I was under the misapprehension
No, it's
that I'd be up
okay.
at a podium speaking. And
Well, I mean, I've got questions.
I'm glad you're wrong.
Thank you.
I'm good. I think everybody pretty much has heard what they need to hear
Okay,
from me, and I'll
okay.
answer whatever.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm saying I'll answer questions.
All right. So,
If you need to fill time, I can.
Craig,
stand and participate.
Craig, what should every public school in New Hampshire be providing all of its teachers and staff members? So this teachers and staff, physically and in other forms of support, including wages and benefits. So this is not students, this is just teachers and staff.
Oh, I'm not sure too many students or too many teachers would turn down more pay, but I think that's a conversation for another day perhaps. But I think, key for what I would like to see teachers have is the ability to teach their students the way that they need to be taught, and to be held accountable and do things that are needed to improve the testing scores, or not just the testing scores, but the learning of the students. So I think test scores are one indication of learning, but I don't think they're holistic. Right? I think it's a KPI you can use, and I think it's something that's interesting to look at. But I think back on my education where the teachers that I had the ability and the support from the school districts and from them to teach the subject and to do that in the way that they thought was best. And there were variations certainly amongst teachers on how to do that. But to me, the key thing that I'm looking at from a school district and from a school is, are you teaching students, and are you teaching them what they need to do to be successful in life? Whether that's, go on to university, or whether it's in the vocations, and giving them the opportunities to explore and understand what those are, and the ability to think for themselves, to reason for themselves, and to articulate their thoughts.
Okay, so that kind of goes, that's
goes
kind
into
of
the next one, but I
providing
mean,
for the students,
okay,
yeah,
but from
yeah.
a support perspective, I think they need to have, to Lucy's point, the autonomy and the ability and the resources and funding to do that. The environment in a building that's not falling down and falling apart, in an environment where they know that they're supported in their subjects, and that they can teach the way that they think that they need to.
Cynthia?
Can you read that?
Yeah. First, it's 2 questions, but I thought we could put them together.
Sure.
What should every public school in New Hampshire be providing all its teachers and staff members, physically and in all other forms of support, including wages and benefits? So this is staff,
Right.
teachers and staff.
And stuff. Okay. Now, my understanding about a school board is that really whoever's on that school board is supposed to be overseeing the budget for the school. Everything kind of comes through the school board. They decide how much is going to be spent based on the budget. they, I believe, are the ones that decide whether or not to accept a teacher into a position. They accept the resignations or not. And they basically make a decision on how much is going to be spent on the resources. Now, I think from my understanding is that it's very important to adhere to that budget and be very transparent about it, but be as fair as you possibly can. And as near as I can tell from being in schools for as long as I have, there's always a competition for where should the money be best spent. I believe the school's teachers are on a STEP program, and that's pretty clear. I would hope that people would be legal about it and that the school board is responsible for overseeing that. I guess I think that we do the kids a favor and we do the citizens a favor if we pick the most qualified people for the job. You know, sometimes you have more than one person vying for a job. And I think it would be nice to pick maybe the person that would be ideal. Maybe not base it entirely on whether or not that person. So that would be somebody that I think the school would be responsible for. But you know, again, you know, I'm coming from somebody whose mother did this for 11 years. We're responsible for making sure that the budget is upheld to the best of our ability. If we feel like we need to ask for more money in the next year's budget, we're responsible for providing a good reason for that. And that's basically kind of what I see. And the rest of the stuff needs to kind of be ironed out within that. That's where local control comes from. So you go with what you come in with on your budget, and I think you do the best you can to be fair and to look at the issues. I'm a big athletics kid. I grew up in the era of Title IX, and I was very grateful for it. It has made a huge, huge impact on my overall health. And so I think that that should be encouraged within our own public school. But I also think any kids here who are homeschooled should have access to what we have there too, because I think it's a health issue.
So that kind of goes like every public school should be providing all their
I think
students and-
that you should be following the law. Okay, like I can give you an example. My niece and my nephew were both homeschooled. Not everybody in our family thought it was a good idea, but they were homeschooled. And my niece was just somebody that she just picked up on everything really well, including athletics. And sometimes the people in the school were a bit discriminating against her because she was homeschooled. Like they'd let her play ball for 2 minutes, you know? And the kid, I mean, just to give you an example, she was all county this year as a senior. And she was all county last year too. She was high score and helped her team knock off the 3rd seed. They were seeded 7th. So my niece had very good potential for playing, but yet we know she was discriminated against a little tiny bit because she was homeschooled and she wasn't going to public school. I know because when my brother finally told me that, I looked up the laws in Maine and that's illegal. So I'm really a big proponent on being fair to people, following the law. If you don't like the law, then maybe we need to talk about that in a different avenue. You know, but we are responsible for making sure that our children, both homeschooled and public schooled, are supported as much as we can.
Okay, great. I think we've had somebody come into the room. I don't know who you are.
Jeffrey Allen, I'm currently sitting on the school board.
Okay, is there anyone else coming down?
So just let out, and I talked to a couple people who said they're on their way home.
Okay,
I don't know about Brianne. I don't know
Okay.
if she's coming down. or not.
okay, all right, well, and I've got your sheet in here, so I could read your your letter
Whatever
or.
you want, I'm comfortable with whatever you want to do.
So my first question, just to catch you up, was,
Why don't we let Jeff do do an introduction, because we
Okay.
let
Yeah.
everybody else do an introduction.
okay, well,
So I
but-
missed
but-
everybody else's.
but in it.
Well, you
in it-
can, so we
can all do it again.
But Jeffrey, in
So,
it, you
so
need
Jeff,
to
we're
tell us-
recording all this, so you can
Oh,
watch the
that's
whole
true.
thing.
Right, that's right.
But in it, you need to tell us how many times you have been to a town meeting or yearly school meeting.
Okay,
So in it, that was part of
what if
your
I don't?
introduction.
Okay, so why don't we start with that, because I don't know the answer. I've been to a bunch. I go to all the school board meetings since I was appointed, and I was on the school budget committee before I moved over to the school board. So I've been attending, so I'm very well versed. Last year, I was president of the Pres LCS PTO. I appreciate all the volunteers I see in the room. Help this out. I've been active in the school system for as long as I've been here. I have kids in the school system. I dodged your answer on how many how many school meetings I went to, but only because I really don't know. I go to a lot. I recognize a lot of faces in the crowd.
Are you from Wilton or Library?
I'm from Lineborough.
Okay.
I'm running for a Lineborough only slot. Lucius and I are running for the same position. The position was vacated by Jonathan Vanderhoof in December. We had an interesting, I had declared my interest in running for school board this year before I didn't know that he was going to leave when he left. I put my name in the hat to be selected, to be considered for the position. And then after all the hooliganism, I was selected for this position. Here I am. I am here because I have kids in the district. I'm here because I love it. I'm here because I love the kids. I'm on the school board because I want to remain on the school board because I think we have a lot of facility issues that are being mismanaged. I think those facility issues directly affect your bottom line as taxpayers and mine. I think that we now have our staff that we hire to educate our children are working, anybody that's been involved in the facilities for the school. We have them working right now, and we hire people to work in conditions that we wouldn't work in ourselves, and that's unfortunate. It's not fair to our staff, and it's not fair to the students that we expect to have pride in the school to be educated. And so I have a business background, I have a governmental contracting background, I have a curriculum background. I have spent much time creating curriculum, some of which has been rolled out nationwide. That being said, I don't believe that that's the role of the school board. I think the role of the school board is strictly to manage the superintendent, stay out of the teachers and the administrators' business, because they're professionals and we hire them to do a job, we let them do the job. And if if the superintendent is not managing his people correctly and they're not doing their job correctly, then we find a new superintendent. But it is unfair for us as a school board to micromanage our educators, their curriculum, and then hold them accountable for failures that have been created at another level.
Dude, did you read my presentation?
So that's why I'm here, right? I think that most of the people in the room that know me, have been around town for a while. I get along with most people. Not everybody agrees with me. Most people may not agree with me, but I believe that we work to develop a consensus to better meet the needs of the schools, to educate students, that we commit to these school systems. We require them to go to these schools. We owe them an education. We pay tax dollars to give them an education. By God, we ought to be spending that right and supporting the students in the staff that we hire to educate our kids. And that's every kid. I don't care if you're in one of the, if you're on an IEP, I don't care if you're top of the class. You are owed an education. The taxpayers, whether you have kids in the school or not, pay their taxes to educate their kids, and that's what we owe them. I was unhappy with some of the things that were taking place. I've never met a teacher that I didn't like in our district. I swear every time I hear something bad about something, that's wrong. They've been incredible to my kids all the way up through. And that's why I'm here.
Okay,
Did I cover it?
you did.
All right.
You did, and you kind of answered the question that I asked. So
I knew
Craig, I'm gonna ask you, Michelle, it's not that I don't care about you over there. I'm gonna ask you, and this is kind of two questions together. What is your opinion regarding New Hampshire's EFA Educational Fund accounts? Or, and the other questions is just calling them school vouchers. So what is your opinion on that?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure, are AFAs and school vouchers the same thing? I'll be honest, play ignorant on that, but close enough to
yeah.
where we can consider them as both, okay, fair enough. Pretty big fan of school vouchers in principle. I'd like to understand more how they look to be utilized. I think, you know, it has to be recognized that they could potentially have, or they do, or they could potentially have an impact on local schools that are underperforming. But I think that's also the other thing that I like about it, right? Is that it does provide students an option to, you know, if the school that their children are assigned to is underperforming and won't perform, they have an opportunity to grow also. Mixed reviews on it. Okay, since you guys have an opinion on it, but that's my opinion. As far as, you know, how that's particularly applied here in New Hampshire, I'd like to hear both sides of it more to form a firmer opinion. But I know that there's been times in our children's education where we wouldn't mind, you know, taking them elsewhere. But, you know, our kids have loved the schools here, right? And have found great joy there. I think it's just more of, you know, how do we make sure that we have a school that people don't want to use these vouchers and want to keep their kids in the school? That's what I'm more interested in, is to how do we achieve that and how do we get to a point to where the school board and the school district is one that, you know, ideally students from other schools would want to come to us, right? I'm far more interested in that conversation than, you know, abandoning our schools and taking school vouchers to go elsewhere. However, I do recognize the interest of parents to say, listen, if the school here isn't going to perform and isn't going to provide what my kids need, or what I feel my kids need to be educated and to receive a proper education, then yeah, I don't want to be held hostage to a school that won't perform, and I want my kids to have that education. So I think it comes down to the school board and the school district to make sure that they're on the right side of that issue and that they're a school of destination, not a school of exit.
Okay, all right. Can we read that again?
Sure.
Your
That'd be good.
opinion regarding New Hampshire's EFA's educational fund accounts or school vouchers?
I'm not really supportive of vouchers. And the reason I'm not is because I think people who are able to send their children to a private school of some sort, there are many people that are already able to do that. And if you don't want to send your kids into the public schools, that's fine. You can send them out to a religious school or a private academy someplace, and you kind of resort that. I feel really, really concerned about the voucher systems taking money out of the public schools. I just am very, very concerned about that, because public school is very important, especially for people who maybe they have access to the vouchers, but it's not enough to bridge the gap. And that does seem to be somewhat of an issue. I will say, though, I wouldn't feel bad if our state provided resources for homeschooled kids, maybe private kids that needed something, and the public education. I don't have an issue with that. I just have a problem taking money out of the public schools, because I think they are in a struggle.
Okay,
Same question.
same question.
I would tend to agree that and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be wrong about this. There is a state school budget, which is X number of dollars. School voucher system siphons off a portion of that to support a voucher system. I think I'm correct about that, which means that is money not being put into the support of the schools you don't want kids to exit from, right? You don't want kids to exit from the schools, you have to support the schools, which means properly funding them. So if you siphon money off and give it into a voucher program, where is the shortfall? How is that made up? That's what I'd like to know. Now, in principle, the idea, well, Milton Friedman said many years ago, back in the 60s, that if you wanted to destroy the public education system, you set up a voucher program to siphon money off the public budget and to support these private enterprises like charter schools and whatnot. That may be an extreme position, but that's, you know, that was that. There are many students who have special needs. If the schools, because of budgetary or other concerns, cannot meet the needs of those students at the school, then what becomes of them? Well, that's why you could set up alternative programs, whether it's a charter school or some kind of voucher program, so that these kids have their needs met. But you have to raise the money to do that. It doesn't just grow on a tree. It can't be taken from the normal budget to operate the school system, because someone is going to suffer, right? If you take money away and you don't supply a recompensatory fund, what do you do? So I want anything that will support kids, and whatever it is. I'm only doing this because I want to have kids have the best opportunities that they can. But you can't take with one hand and give it to somebody else, because then what happens to what you took it from? This is the problem. So in principle, a voucher or charter school alternative education is a good thing, as long as it's funded, as long as the state budgetary mechanism can provide money to do that. Because taking it from the public schools, to me, is shortchanging the public school system. Is that answer your question?
You're better than I am. I haven't gotten any tomatoes.
Oh, you should have been here earlier. The cabbages were flying, man, let me tell you. Anyway.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, so let me clear, I know, so I agree with a little bit of what everybody said, right? And not to be that guy. But some of the misconceptions. So most of the people that tuition to go to private schools, so there's a cap on the vouchers, an income cap. And so a lot of the people that are sending their kids to those private schools are the cost for a lot of local private schools, like you go to High Mo and you go to Bishop Gert, you go to Bishop Brady, is $24,000 to $25,000 a year to go to those schools. And for me to be able to afford to do that, and I'm over the cap, right? And I would never be able to. And so a lot of the kids that are sending their kids to private schools aren't the kids that are taking advantage of these vouchers. But I agree very strongly with what both Lucius and Mr. Alley said, because it does take money out of the local school system. And so we have concerns, right? Because we owe it to, people don't have a choice to send their kids to school. A lot of people don't have a choice to send their kids to our school district. And so we don't want to defund our district. But then there's also these side cases of people who can't have their needs met in the system. And one of the things you mentioned about the special needs and IEPs is like, we're required by state law to take care of those kids. We don't have the option of saying, no, we're not going to help you, we're required to. And I was just up to the administrative office today, signing our school board vouchers for the funds that we spend for these kids who need that special treatment. And we pay for it. And if your kids, I know that there are kids who don't feel they're getting what they should. And so you really have to advocate for your IEP, which is a whole separate issue. But as far as the vouchers are concerned, I certainly see where somebody who doesn't choose to educate their kid in the district should take that minuscule amount of money and send it somewhere else. But on the other hand, by doing so, we're also starving our local school district, and we have an obligation with students that live here not to starve them out there, local money. And so I think what Craig said, he hit the nail on the head, is we have to develop a school system that people don't want to take their kids out of, because we don't want to force kids. Like, if you look at our high, I don't know how many of you followed the iReady scores this year, like our high school iReady scores are, that's scary for me as a kid who is a parent of 2 kids who are going into high school.
Say that again, what
The iReady scores
are what?
have been dropping down.
At the high
This year,
school
on the high
level.
school level,
Right.
elementary school, awesome, they're doing a
Yeah.
great job.
Right.
High school level, not so much. And so that scares me as a parent, because I have to make a decision as a parent, not just as a school board member. Am I going to keep my kids in the district and hope they do well? Because kids do well in the district in spite of that. Or do I look and seek elsewhere, because you only get one shot at educating your kids. Once that time is gone, if I make a mistake as a parent, I don't get a do-over. It's done, it's gone. And so I have real concerns about being forced to keep my kids in a district that isn't performing. And I feel for parents that have the same, and I'm not saying our district isn't, but parents who are, because there are districts in the state that just aren't performing. But I don't want to starve the school district too. So one of the problems of sitting on the school board, right, is I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. We love community feedback, but I would like to focus more on, let's get our school district to be a school district that we don't want to send our kids out of.
I'm just gonna take a moment to read. I have 3 letters here. One is from John Lavoy, Lineborough seat on the school board. I'm active volunteering. He wrote it right. I'm just not reading it right. I'm an active volunteering resident in Lineborough, currently on the zoning board, and have 2 boys of my own in the district. However, I have also built close ties to many other children, and I want them all to succeed. My wife and I own the local daycare across the street from Frez, and I have the privilege of coaching baseball in town for roughly 5 years. I have formed lasting relationships with all of the current 2nd through 5th graders and their families. I believe it's important to protect the educational experience for these kids already active in the school system, but I also think it is critical that we plan appropriately for those who have yet to begin their educational journey. We have a consistent challenge of teachers and administrators leaving our schools. I will explore options to support the superintendent and administration in retaining excellence by promoting WLC as a career home for top-tier teachers. This will benefit both the district and the students long-term. Test scores at the high school level are insufficient. What can the board do to assist our school leadership for better performance? The facilities are becoming neglected with the lack of an effective capital improvement plan, and funds are not being properly allocated. The school board and budget committees need to work towards a better solution, such as splitting expected repair costs over a set number of years. Most of these things are agreeable to everyone, and it simply takes the right people and leadership to get it done. That's the type of person I am. I see a problem, find a solution, and get it done. I ask for my fellow Lineborough residents' votes on March 14th. Thank you, John Lavoy.
He's running for what?
School board.
School board.
Yep.
What
in-
town?
Lineborough, I said.
But not, is he the at-large candidate from Lineborough?
No. 3, and we have 2.
Brown and Tatiana are running for
For
the,
the at-large, but isn't there one more? Don't we have another?
no, there's only one at large. One is Wilton
Oh,
and
and Darlene, but she's not up for election.
So who is Jonathan Lavoy running against?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Got it, okay.
Sarah,
Don't
Chesnensky,
make me pronounce her last name.
Chesnensky.
okay.
She's my neighbor, actually.
And she, Did she send us a letter?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so we don't have
She said
something.
she was gonna be.
Okay, all right. I have one from Brianne, and she is the at-large between, right?
Yes, for school board.
For school board, yes. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the community for showing up and getting involved. I would have loved to have joined you, but our New Hampshire winter and other plans tonight, I ended up having to chair the school board meeting, so my priority to students came first. My apologies. Many in the community already know me because I grew up here, but also because I have served on the school board since 2020 because of what I try to be brief, so the moderator, thanks, Deb, doesn't have to read too much aloud. I believe with my whole heart in our schools, our students, our teachers, and our community. I feel like we have many positive qualities that get forgotten or overlooked. However, there is always room to grow and improvements that can be made. It is important to invest our time, our experience, and our attention in order to move in a positive direction. I also believe in the importance of opportunities that public schools can provide through academic, athletic, and co-curricular activities, because a well-educated population is the very foundation to a thriving society. I know we have many challenges ahead of us, and I know from my past 3 years on the board that the answers are not as simple as we would like them to be. It takes time, patience, and ability to work with others and an understanding of how public schools function. It also takes an ability to acknowledge when you don't know the answer and the drive to try to educate yourself to find it. I think those are the skills that I have strived to bring to the board. And I know I have more to learn, but I am ready to do it. We can work together and find solutions. I truly believe this. In my professional career, I have extensive experience with policy development and staff management in a healthcare setting. I also have taken time to further educate myself on the many issues public schools are currently facing. For example, standardized testing formats, rising health concerns in students, changing behavioral interventions, the science of curriculum development, and more. I'm thankful to the many of my friends and family that are teachers who have pointed me in the right direction when needed. A few of the areas I would like to focus on in my next term would be working on teacher and staff retention. I think it will help that we are starting to gather more information by formalizing an exit interview process. I believe that this is just a starting point, but we are headed in the right direction. I want to work with the board on improving our student experience in a number of ways, facilities, opportunities, etc. If we can start with the involvement of the student school board member, which has become a state requirement as of 1/1/2023. As chair of policy committee, I have initiated the process of working out the details of how to maximize the required results of this change. And we have begun the process of reflecting these changes in policy that is currently in draft form. I also look forward, if elected, to working with fellow board members on improving the running of school board meetings. My goal would be a more efficient and more focused, data-driven board meeting, resulting in decisions. Currently, we do not have a board policy to address the rules of running our meeting, so we will be having this discussion in policy committee this week, and I hope to stay on board to see this through. Lastly, but certainly not least, I would love to see the reinvigoration of the strategic planning committee. I feel like in order to grow, we all need direction and purpose. We need to have all stakeholders come together, thoroughly investigate areas of potential improvement and potential solutions, so we can provide the recommendations to the board and the community so that the hard decisions that need to be made can be well-informed and thoughtful and not reactive. Thank you for your time and best wishes to all the candidates. Lavelle. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna ask you guys questions before I read this one. What makes you, I'm gonna start with you. What makes you a better candidate to execute these important responsibilities? Brag on you.
Brag on me. I've been a speech pathologist for 39 years. And I take that job very seriously. A large portion of that I've spent advocating for kids. I've worked with kids from Head Start all the way up to 21. And I think that makes me very qualified. End the story. I just think
Excellent.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Remedy. So with.
Same question.
Yeah.
So I won't be as brief, unfortunately, so apologize in advance. To be honest, I'm not the judge as to who or why is the best candidate. I'll leave that to the town. I'll just enumerate what strength I think I bring to the role or can bring to it. You know, my job requires me to work with lots of diverse cultures and people around the globe to solve very complex problems. And to do that in a fair and equitable way, in looking at, and these are problems that impact hundreds of millions of dollars. And I see that as a strength that I can bring to bring, you know, a different perspective, a new perspective to town. You know, we haven't been here as long as, I think we may be the newest people in town. In the room here, we can have a contest later. I don't know what we win, but you know, some new perspectives and also my, you know, my background in solving those problems. You know, having to get people who are very opposed to each other to move in the same direction and in a diplomatic way that achieves, you know, the goal that's there at the end. I think that's probably some of the issues that we face here at the school board and with our schooling system, is just to take an objective approach, bring some common sense and some wisdom and some and you know, the experience of being parents and having seen different schools around the country and the strengths that those schools had, the weaknesses those schools had, as well as, you know, what we look for as parents to educate our kids and guide in that way. So I guess that's what I would throw out there is my experience, what I bring to the table.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Why am I the best candidate?
Yeah.
I'm not the best candidate.
To execute these important responsibilities.
Yes, well, why am I the best candidate? Yeah, you know, why are you the best at anything? I don't know. 'Cause
I can write it.
I can hit the ball further than anybody else. No. I bring a varied and diverse background to this candidacy. Like I said, you know, like I worked as a teacher for 28 years, 25 in the public schools. For the first 15 years of that, I banged nails. You know, I worked in construction 6 days a week and every Saturday. So, you know, I think I bring something to the table that a lot of people don't. I also bring a pretty, I'm not a guy to toot his own horn, but I think I bring a pretty extensive academic background. I understand the needs of teachers. I understand teacher morale. And I understand what helps to build teacher morale. And at least in my experience, giving teachers their head, so to speak. I mean, I was very fortunate that the guy that hired me, a little side note here, my job interview was in a pub. Just telling you. And every time I tried to bring up, oh, well, what's the curriculum? He's like, yeah, have another beer, wait, please. And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. But but the point is that I was given my head. He let me do what I wanted to do. So I had very high morale because I could write my own curriculum. I could develop these college accredited courses. I could do I ordered my own textbooks. I had a unique career because I was in charge of my career. And a lot of teachers don't get that opportunity. They're given a text and they're told you're going to teach 9th and 11th, and that's it for the next 30 years of your life. And that is deadening. I'm sorry, that's deadening. So teachers, I think, need to be, I think on the board. Why am I a good candidate? Because I want to be an advocate for teachers. I mean, I want to be an advocate for kids because they are why the teachers are there. And I will tell you about staff is any school building I walked into, and I worked in 3 or 4 different school buildings. The first people I talked to when I walked in the building were the custodians. Because I'm a blue collar guy, I've always been a blue collar guy, and those were the people that made the place run. They were it. If you wanted anything, you had to talk to them. So we were all friends. When I had a free period, I would hang out with those guys. Okay, I didn't hang around with English teachers because I already knew about that. I hung around with the guys that were working at the furnace and stuff like that. So, anyways, my point is, I think I bring a different. It's certainly look. Well, my whole background is academic, but I think I bring a diverse background to this job because my concerns are broad.
So I'm gonna steal all his thunder again.
Excellent. Here, I have this all ready.
So like Lucius, but in a different way, I bring a not necessarily a different, right? Because we all have different backgrounds. We all are a product of our own upbringing, and that brings us to make decisions like we make decisions. I went to college, where my first undergrad, I went to become an English teacher. And I said, I can't stand dealing with the parents and I can't stand dealing with the administrators. And so I went to the business route. And I went through and I got my MBA. I'm a career military guy. And so because of that, in the military, my job in the military is unique. They made a position just for me. True story though. I write curriculum at the direction of the governor of Massachusetts for high schools. I do STEM curriculum, I do cyber curriculum, I do impaired driving curriculum. We've done coding, mostly around the STEM fields. And that's to provide free opportunities for schools because schools can't afford crap. It's crazy.
Yeah,
So, and so my biggest focus since I was appointed to the school board to fill Jonathan's slot until this election, I learned that I didn't know crap about what the school board does or what goes behind the scenes in the school district. It's crazy. And in my business background, so I manage facilities. I manage a capital improvement plan. I manage a facility maintenance and upkeep plan for us, for all of the things that we send to these schools in Massachusetts. And that's one of the major things that our district is really lacking. And so when you guys every year, you're going to go to the meeting this Saturday, I hope you all go, and you're going to see what's going on with your tax dollars, right? And a lot of that's just because we don't have a good capital improvement plan. We don't budget our money. If we have you're going to see it this weekend. We have $300,000 of boilers that need to be repaired. Then why do we only have $35,000 set aside for that? If we knew 40 years ago that we needed boilers. So we need to have a good plan because that keeps your tax level fairly straight, but more importantly, it provides our schools in our teachers, in our students, the vandalism that we've had at the schools this year. I think if kids had a facility that they took pride in, and if the teachers were supported, and if the teachers weren't micromanaged, like all that education stuff, awesome. But I don't think my job is to tell the educators how to educate. My job, the board of directors, school board is like a board of directors for a corporation who manages the CEO, which is the superintendent. And we give him the feedback from the community and we tell him what the community wants in terms of an education and what the community wants in terms of facilities, in terms of sports, in terms of budget, and then he makes it happen. And if he isn't making it happen, then again, sorry, Mr. Weaver, if you watch this later, but then we find a new superintendent because we need somebody who's going to do what the community wants and be the CEO of the school district. So what makes What I bring to the table, again, not that I'm the best candidate, right? That's for you to decide, but what I bring to the table is a business background, managing facilities, managing budgets, increasing production with a decreasing budget, which we've had over the last 7 years. And then beyond that, staying out of the school's way so the school can do what the school does and does well. And so what, Bradley? So the school can do what the school does well. And that's not my job. My job isn't to tell an educator how to educate. My job is to make sure the educator has the support, the facilities, the money, the budget, the curriculum, everything they need to get done what they need to do. So that's what I think is a consensus builder. I believe that a 5-4 vote on the school board is a bad vote, because that means we all didn't spend time trying to come up with a solution that represented the entire district.
All right,
Now you can tell them I'm full of crap.
thank you. I'm gonna read one more little letter here. This is from Tatiana Franco, and she is running against Brianne in the member at large. So this is on our Wilton ballot. Is that on Wilton?
Wilton and Lime Grove.
Yeah, okay. So member at large. Tatiana Franco sent me this. Hello, community. Welcome to this event. I hope you had a wonderful school vacation week with your children. I was fortunate to experience some sunshine with mine in Florida. I have 2 adult children that I homeschooled for 40 years prior to having them enter the Wilton Lime Grove school system. They were both self-motivated high achievers. My daughter was class president and valedictorian. My son overcame his special needs and was a gifted musician and advanced mathematician and head football captain for 2 years. Both my adult children went on to college. My daughter graduated summa cum laude in her undergrad as well as her MBA degree. My son came down with a brain illness in college, and instead of continuing as a math whiz, had to modify his life in order to stay alive, spending about 5 years of his young adult life in hospitals. My 8-year-old son attends Florence Rideout. He started pre-K and kindergarten at a small private Christian school and was a whole year ahead when he started first grade at Fres. He has since leveled off, but is bilingual and quite an artist. I myself have lived on 3 continents, have experienced many cultures, spoken several languages, experienced every social and economic status, from hunger to riches, vice versa, and from extreme abuse and survival to peace and prosperity. I've co-owned 2 companies and currently own a real estate rental company. I've been a married parent, and I have been a single parent. I've also been a battered homeless single parent. As such, I understand all too well the need for kindness, mutual respect, honesty, and integrity in our society, in our schools, and our homes. My first husband and father of my adult children was a Spanish-speaking native South American from Peru. Together, we performed music and dance and taught workshops in hundreds of schools, universities, museums, and festivals around the East Coast and Canada. We performed at the United Nations, the Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, and for presidents. Even though I grew up in Geneva, Switzerland, speaking French, I was born to American parents in Boston. They lived very international lives, and I was actually conceived in Tunisia, a Muslim Arab country in North Africa, where they have resided and where my dad had built a Harvard Business School prototype. Huge spicy couscous dishes were our favorite meals growing up. When my dad was a financial consultant to one of the US presidents, I attended the French Lycée in Washington, D.C. with the sons and daughters of African diplomats. My very best friend was Congolese. We hadn't noticed each other's color, but we did play with each other's hair. I may have experienced many cultures and languages, but I'm an American patriot and have come to love this country. The reason I chose to stand up for the anthem and recite the Pledge of Allegiance is because I very much honor the sacrifices of our veterans and military and the freedoms they have provided for us. My hope in this race is, one, to encourage fiscal responsibility, accountability, and foresight. Two, to focus funds on repairs and upgrades rather than expansion. Three, to ensure that students have a functional knowledge of reading, writing, and math for the real world. Four, to engage students in personal finance, i.e. budget, debt, mortgages, investments, and retirement. Five, to increase preparation for trades. Six, to protect our children from sexualization, pornographic content, and gender ideology, and from the divisive CRT curriculum that is advancing in the national public school system and the teachers' unions. Seven, to engage parents in the education of their children, whether be it for much needed trades, the immediate release into the workforce, or in preparation for higher education. Eight, to instill in children a sense of mutual respect, empathy, inner purpose, and core value, and to encourage students to be self-driven and autonomous. Thank you for being invested in your community. I look forward to serving you, Tatiana. So, Brianne.
You have 7 questions, you're behind.
I read your letter.
Oh, you did, okay.
And yeah, it was fun. And I want you to tell us what makes you a better candidate to execute these important responsibilities.
Well, I will say that joining the school board is a learning experience, and joining it at the very start of the pandemic and with big changes to our budget was even more of a learning experience. So I feel like I bring that. I feel like I joined at a time where we had to hit the ground running. Things were changing quickly. We were trying to navigate a very difficult situation. And I was on the committee for that. And it wasn't just managing the situation, it was also trying to meet the various needs of people, because we had very different perspectives during that time. And, you know, it was a challenge trying to meet everyone's needs. I think that what I primarily bring to the board is my experience that I've had on the board, my experience that I've had in this town. I think that living here my whole life, I was originally lived next door to the town hall when I was a baby, but then I moved to Lineborough. I know how very unique our community is and how very important it is to focus on our community, focus on our kids in our school, in our community, and what is happening in our schools. And it's hard to sometimes listen to the noise that's taking place in other places in New Hampshire or other places around the nation. But I think it's important as a board member to make decisions based on our school and our kids, and with evidence. I'm a firm believer in, as I said in my notice tonight, that we need to recognize the things we bring to the table, but we also need to recognize any lack of knowledge that we might have. And I feel strongly that it's our job, even though we're volunteering and we don't get paid for it, I take my job very seriously. And whenever there's an item on the agenda, I have attempted to educate myself on that item as much as possible. And that's something that I'll continue to do. I do think that there is work that we have to do, and I do have some ideas, as I discussed in there. I think if we can focus on streamlining the board's responsibilities and holding more effective meetings, then we'll be able to see some of the changes in the school, and we'll be able to support the staff the way we need to by not micromanaging, but asking those important questions about what we need to do to help.
Excellent.
I'll get a look.
So we're just gonna go I mean, because we can be finished here, but so school meeting is this Saturday
School meeting is this Saturday, yes,
and election is next Tuesday.
yes.
And then when is your Limeborough's town meeting?
Limeborough's town meeting is
Saturday, following
The
Saturday.
following Saturday, okay. If you're from Wilton, you can pick up your town meeting report, your town report here. There's also something that explains, what do we call that other thing? that they-
Voter's guide.
Voter's guide. Nick's looking at me like, come on, Deb. It's the voter's guide, so it explains everything else you need to know. So let's just, Michelle, you start and just say a few words about what you would like your community to do in the next 2 weeks.
My community to do.
Looking forward to meetings and elections.
Well,
meetings.
definitely something that I would like to do as well is make sure to get out and vote and, use your thoughts and how you think about, the specific things on the ballots and choose what you want. That's what our country's about, it's being free to choose what we want. Is that what you
Yeah,
wanted?
perfect.
Correct answer.
No loss.
Same question. Do your research, ask questions, reach out, get out and vote.
Don't move, vote. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, all the above. And for me, it's sort of talking to people. I'm a hiker, I walk a lot, and that's how I get to know people, and that's how I get to meet them. And when I meet them, and lately, I mentioned that I'm a candidate for the school board, which immediately generates interest. And so I've been getting earfuls of, let's just, I don't want to characterize the school board, but there's a certain discontent, shall we say, in the community. I'm sorry?
You're not wrong.
Okay, so, and that's what I've been hearing. And so what I say to them is, that's wrong. There should not be discontent in the community about what the school board is doing. It's not the job of the school board to foster discontent. So I tell them, well, I'll just do whatever I can to help normalize things. And that's what I do, is just talk to people. So get out the vote. And I think, I just look at, personally, I think we have some pretty good candidates here. And so that's your problem, is to try to choose, and I don't envy you that, believe me.
I agree, and definitely show up to the district meeting. I love to see a large audience on those Saturday meetings, and not just the 2 weeks, but the rest of the year too. I love hearing from community members, and the best meetings we have are the meetings where lots of people show up and give us feedback, because it's sometimes really hard to make a decision if we don't know how the people of the town actually feel about it. So keep your feedback coming.
I would echo that. I don't know all the candidates that are running. I think that most of them will bring, I hope that most of them, if nothing else, will bring brevity to the school board.
Brevity? Oh, yeah.
And well, with brevity, it means there's little contention, right? I think that we accomplish more. I think Brianne will agree that we accomplish more when we're trying to agree or trying to find consensus and not screaming at each other across the table. Please show up this weekend. I don't care how you vote Saturday, but please show up to vote, because the largest portion of your taxes is coming from the school budget. And I'm amazed at the handful of people that show up every single year. And this is where you control what the school does. This is where you can see what the school board is going to spend your money on. And then when they don't do it throughout the year, you could show up to the meetings and hold them accountable for it, because you run the show. You run the show. And so own that. Come to the school board meetings like Brian. It's my whole thing tonight has been agreeing with everybody else. Show up to the school board meetings. Say what you have to say. Throw your opinion into the mix. because the school board works for you, and if the school board isn't performing the way you want it to, show up and tell them that. But not just when you're mad, show up when we're trying to make decisions, or whoever's on the school board is trying to make decisions, so we can get community feedback, because it's your school, it's your education, it's your students, and it's your tax dollars. And we're just 9 people on the school board that really don't have any, we all bring different professional things to the table, but I don't know that any of us have ever been administrators. I don't know that any of us has ever been that involved with running a school district before. And so we have to do what you want. So please show up to vote on Tuesday, because it matters regardless who you vote for. Do your research. Don't listen to what everybody says. Do your research and get the facts and find out who you think would be the best candidate for you. I wish Lucius all the luck in the world.
You too.
I've never met him outside of interactions on social media, which aren't always the best venue for us to express ourselves. I'm a very comfortable person in person. I will work with anybody to get anything done. And just be involved. I don't care how you're involved, who you're involved with, just be involved.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all. Thank you.